What's going on, everyone? So as promised, I am back with another video today, and we're actually going to be comparing two of Canon's latest 24-70s, and that is the Canon 24-70 RF IS and the 24-70 EF Mark II. So let's just jump right into it. So this is how the video is going to break down. We're going to start with some first look comparisons, and then we're going to jump into some spec comparisons, and then we're going to do some photo and video examples, all of which will be available for download for viewing. So that way you can see how the lenses compare from your eyes. And then we're going to go into some final thoughts, pros and cons of the two lenses. And although this isn't a scientific test, this is kind of like a video just to see how the two lenses compare on the EOSR. So let's just jump right into it. So just a quick little overview look of the two different lenses. They both use 82mm front filter threads. Of course, the RF uses a RF mount and the EF uses a EF mount. So if you want to use this on the R system, you will have to use an adapter like the control ring, ND, or just the regular adapter that it comes with the camera. The actual focus ring on the RF version feels a lot smoother, but the EF version does have numbers and stuff, so that way you can see the distance and marker distances for focus pulling. You don't have that feature on the RF version, but on the RF version you do have a built-in control ring, although it's not like declickable. If you want to get it declickable, you have to send it into Canon and then pay for that, which is around $80, I believe. But you can set this to ISO, aperture, and many other things inside the camera system. But this lens does have IS, which is a huge feature. But we'll see how that actually performs later on in the video. So other than that, that's just a quick little overview of the two lenses. The RF version is a little bit heavier by about 20 grams, I believe. So, but we'll show that later on in the video. And then when you actually zoom out, the barrel on the RF version doesn't extend as far, and the zoom ring feels a lot smoother when zooming out to 70 compared to the EF version right here. So as you can see, the barrel extends a lot longer, but however, what that measurement is exactly, you'll see in the spec comparison next. So let's go ahead and move on to that. Hey guys, just wanted to jump in here and do some zoomed in photo comparisons in case the YouTube compression destroys it and you're not able to tell. But on the left, or the red tag, you can see in the bottom right corner next to the X, the red is the RF 24-70 and the green, or on the right, is the EF 24-70 Mark II. So in this photo, I have Sam on the left and Charlie on the right, and I'm just kind of holding up a treat, trying to get their attention. But when we look in and zoom in on the photo, for some reason I noticed that on the whiskers on the RF version, they're not as sharp on the EF version. But when we look on other parts of the photo, and especially on Sam, the dog on the left, when we see later on, the fibers in his hair are a lot sharper. So I'm just kind of going through pretty much the corners of the photos and just kind of to show you a little bit of everything in close up. And so noticeably over here on the left, the RF version is a lot sharper on the leaves. You can see that on the stems, the leaves, or the stems of the plants and everything, it's a lot sharper and a lot more in focus. And in particular, when we look on this kind of group of leaves over here, there's more ghosting, and the photo is less sharp on the right or the EF version. But pretty much both of the lenses are they're pretty close. But if we zoom in on Sam's chest right here on the corner where his hair is, you can see that it's pretty significantly sharper right there. And as well as on Charlie's chest, her hair is a lot sharper compared to the EF version. But on the whiskers, on her nose right there, for some reason on the EF version it was sharper. But they're both pretty sharp overall. So now we're going to jump over to a brick wall test photo, and just kind of jump into the corners and the center as well, looking at the differences. And so on the left version we have the RF, and I noticed that the contrast or saturation is a little bit better, or there's more contrast and saturation on the left. And here, zooming into the brick, you can kind of see that there's more detail and things are looking a little bit more sharper. Jumping into the corner, we can see that on the RF version it is just a little bit sharper in those corners, and you can see the different colors, the color differences of the two bricks, the two lenses. And what I can tell, that there's slightly less vignetting on the RF version, but although that can be corrected in Lightroom or post-processing, although there isn't a profile yet for the RF version, there is a profile for the EF version. See, just in those corners, the RF version is a little bit sharper. And now we're moving on to this photo I took of this bridge, and you can kind of see the color differences on the concrete and the steel, and that lighting fixture right there. But this test, just kind of looking at the vignetting and just different chromatic aberration of the two lenses. And I feel like the chromatic aberration is probably the same on both of the lenses. There's not a profile yet for the RF version, like I said, so I wasn't able to see how that was fixed, but there seems like there's just a little bit less vignetting, but it's really, really close. So moving on to this photo of my girlfriend Jessica, we're just kind of looking at different parts of the photo and seeing kind of the different sharpness and level of detail that they're both able to capture. So on this one, the red is always the RF and the green is the EF. And so if you saw right there, it does look a little bit sharper, but for some reason I think it was because of the focusing or whatever. The eyes aren't as sharp as it is on the EF, but I think that was because of the focusing and not necessarily because of the lens itself. But particularly in this photo, I think you can tell that the shallow depth of field of the bokeh on the RF 24-70, I feel like there's a lot better representation of that. Like it's just slightly sharper, or not sharper, but there's more depth of field, and you can kind of tell on the wall right here. It seems a little bit more creamier or blurry right there, and then also looking at the just more into the photo. So this is a test of the Canon 24-70 EF 2.8 Mark II. So we're going to do a couple motion tracking tests, and then we'll put them side by side to see how they compare. So this is a test of the Canon RF 24-70 2.8 LIS. We're going to do a couple motion tracking tests, and then we're going to put them side by side to see how they compare, and everything's updated to the most recent firmware of 1.4. So here we go. So right now we are vlogging with the 24-70 RF IS lens. Everything is shut off on stabilization. There's no in-body camera stabilization, no lens stabilization, and this is about a $4,000 setup. I'm just using this as a test to see how much, as a baseline, how much stabilization will be corrected in the when I add it in the in-body and camera. So let's go on to that. We've now switched on the camera lens stabilization, so the 24-70 RF IS lens. We turn on the stabilization. That is the only stabilization that is on right now. I'm vlogging with one hand, and this is about a $4,000 setup. So camera RF 24-70 IS is on. Everything else in the EOSR is turned off, just as another baseline test. Currently we are doing another test. This is the 24-70 RF 2.8 IS with the lens stabilization turned on, and then we have the Canon EOS R stabilization to set and enable. We don't have it at enhanced, we just have it at enabled. What does the background look like? Is it shaky? Is it helping the compensation compared to the no stabilization and just the lens stabilization? We'll find out. This is another vlog test, the 24-70 RF 2.8 IS. The lens stabilization is on, and we now have the EOS R stabilization to enhanced. And probably by now you notice that there's a severe crop because of the algorithm and how it works inside the camera. But does it look any smoother than the normal enabled and just the lens IS? I don't know, we'll find out. All right, this is another test. We have now turned the 24-70 Canon RF IS lens. The stabilization is turned off. The only stabilization that we have now is the enable on the EOS R. Again, we are only with one hand on the hand with the kind of where you put your hand on the camera. So the stabilization method that is only on right now is at enable. How does it look? All right, so we are now doing another stabilization test with the EOS R to enhanced. So there might be a slight crop. We are all the way at 24, and there's no lens stabilization on in the lens. So again, only with one hand. We are walking as a vlog test, $4,000 setup. I don't know who would do this, but just as a test, the stabilization is enhanced. How does it look? Does it look like too much warp stabilizer? I don't know, we'll find out. A handheld at 24mm. Everything is turned off on IS. With lens stabilizer on.
lens stabilization on, and then we also have the stabilization in the camera set to enabled, and this is a handheld test of the Canon RF 24-70 with lens stabilization and enable stabilization turned on the camera.
Thank you so much for those of you who stuck with me throughout the entire video. I know it was pretty long, and I wasn't expecting it to be that long, but when editing it, I just felt that it needed to have all those elements in order to show a fair comparison, to see the differences between the two lenses. So, final thoughts, where do I begin? Originally, when I was doing the test, I thought I was going to see a world of a difference, like comparing the Sony 50 versus the 55, or a Nifty 50 versus a Sigma Art. Those two lenses, whenever you compare them side by side, they're just so completely different. And from these tests, like the RF definitely has its improvements and benefits and its strengths, but the 24-70 EF version Mark II still holds its weight and still can do a really good job, and is still professional lens. So some big pros of the RF version is that you have IS, so when doing handheld stuff, it does its job, and I thought it did pretty well. You have a built-in control ring, so that way you don't have to have an adapter. And that's one less thing that you have to worry about to bring on a set or whatever. And then also, whenever you attach the body to the lens with the RF version, it's slightly shorter. I feel like it's a little bit balanced better. And a huge thing was that the autofocus, if you could probably tell from the test, is that the autofocus is silent on the RF version. So if you're doing an interview, it's probably not something that's going to be that's going to get in the way, but it's something that's nice to have. And of course, you'll probably have like a boom mic or a lav mic attached to the talent or the person speaking, so that's not something that's going to get hugely in the way. But as you can tell, even with like bird chirping and stuff, the EF version did have autofocus sound, and it did get picked up on a shotgun or the Rode Video Micro. A couple other notes was that the RF version focused slightly faster, has closer focusing distance, and like I said, it's balanced slightly better whenever attached to the body, so it does have a smoother focus and zoom ring. So those are all the pros of the RF version, and depending on like whether that's worth it to you or not, it's kind of up to you to decide. But if you have any other comments of the comparison, or just questions about the RF lens, feel free to leave those down in the comments below. So other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one.